It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level gaming. Second level.
Let's get into the topic of the show. Whatever the hell we're going to call it, Ask Level 2 Gamers.
I liked bonus round or whatever.
Bonus, what? Put out a poll and whatever.
Yeah.
Bonus level.
Bonus level.
But basically what this is if you are a Patreon supporter, it'll be a nice little link that'll probably go whoop right about now. If you're a Patreon supporter, patreon.com/level2gamersstl, you can donate and or support us. If you do $5 or more, you have the opportunity to choose a topic of the show, a bonus level, if we end up calling it that.
I like it.
I do too.
I decree bonus level.
So you'll be able to choose the bonus level topic. And this bonus level topic is brought to you by Mr. Blue Moon Gaming, who is also one of our mods.
Drew.
Drew. Yeah, it's funny because I don't ever call him Drew.
Drew and Blue rhyme, so for me it's like the same thing.
Well, it's apparently I started the whole Blue thing. Like, I call him Blue just because I know him from online. And
right.
Now James calls him, like, James, I can go back and forth between James and Tigrado, but Blue is always Blue. Like, he's never Drew.
Drew or Blue?
No, he's
Drew
Blue. But anyways, the topic today, I'm waiting for my notes to load here because iPhones. Give me a second.
Unprofessional.
I know, right? Podcast topic. So the topic from Mr. Blue Moon Gaming, otherwise known as Blue, is, does 4K gaming matter? What does it bring to the table? And how long will it take to fully implement true 4K gaming?
That's a three-part question.
He is a PC gamer, so that's kind of, he's one of those guys where graphics matters a lot to him. We've talked about where, for us, graphics aren't necessarily the biggest thing, but he is a graphics-driven. This is why he likes PC gaming, which is teach their own type thing. So, do you want to start, Mr. Guest?
Sure.
What's your take?
Do I think 4K is...
Does 4K gaming matter? Let's start with that.
And it depends on the type of game.
Okay.
I truly think, like, years back when you had, and this was a movie, not so much a game, but the Final Fantasy movies that were coming out, I think pushing those to a game-based thing, or back when the PS2 had fantastic cinematics, but like the gameplay was just kind of crummy.
Mm-hmm. The FMVs.
Yeah.
People would get Final Fantasy 7 just for the FMVs in the middle. It's great.
I think 4K gaming in its sense right now doesn't really matter to me. Just because graphics and everything like that are there for certain reasons. I think pushing it to the limit, you just got to then make bigger and bigger systems, and then bigger price tags. So you're just like,
and at some point you can't tell the difference.
Right.
And that's where you're going to get to. At some point, it's going to look to the point where it's too real.
Right. And I think at that point, once you're going over there, people are going to get really uncomfortable with it. They've tested that with, some VR and high definition sets where people get really uncomfortable because their body immediately thinks that everything they're seeing is real. Mm-hmm. Whereas like VR now, you kind of have like a slight screen door effect, or it's getting better to the point where it's very immersive, but you kind of
have moments where you're like, I'm playing a game.
Yeah, this is just a game.
Yeah.
Like when you're playing Batman, okay, I don't see my arm,
mm-hmm.
but it's like, cool, I can still throw batarangs. Where I think once that happens, it'll have to be implemented very slowly to get people used to it. Otherwise, you're just going to have a bunch of people like, I don't feel comfortable playing that at all.
Yeah. It'll be to the point where whatever they see is basically they'll take as truth, essentially, is what it sounds like. Where it's like, if I put you into a World War II shooter, how traumatic is that to you? Because that's what you're looking at.
Right.
Thing. Like you are that person shooting the other person, and I mean,
I don't think 4K is that high fidelity.
It's 4 times 1080p.
I've seen 4K things though, and I don't immediately
true 4K,
assume
or have you
they're
seen
real.
streaming 4K? Because true 4K,
whatever they show
fantastic.
at Costco when you're walking by those videos.
Are probably it depends on what they stream or what they play them on, but true 4K video is gorgeous.
So I remember the first time we got like a super high definition TV, the one that is behind you, that we use for our gaming. It's a 3D TV. It's all fancy.
It's all fancy.
When that mattered, 120
3D Wi-Fi,
hertz, yeah, all that fun stuff.
Full 80.
So
full HD.
when I first started watching movies and stuff on there, it threw me off because they looked like soap operas.
Mm-hmm.
Like they had this kind of weird like hyper realism to them, which just made me dislike them because it didn't have that movie kind of sheen that you get when you watch something.
Do you think that was just content creators not knowing how to use their technology yet?
No, I think it was just my
just
eyes getting used to the idea of that high quality, that it looks like a video camera as opposed to like an actual like a movie.
Yeah. Because the other thing is frame rate will affect that as well, big time.
Yeah.
From a video perspective.
Yeah. And for games, I don't know. I just think like I haven't played a true 4K game, so I really don't know how I feel about it yet. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm probably going to be blown away the first time I do. I don't think it'll be the same experience as how blown away I was with VR, because that was like a whole new way to play. This is essentially the same thing, just higher fidelity graphics, which is great. And, you know, smoothness and frame rate and all those beautiful things that come along with it. But I don't know if it matters yet, because I don't think enough people have the capability to do it. Because 4K TVs are still pricey. From a console
standpoint, now both consoles have 4K capabilities and HDR, which I think HDR is a bigger deal than 4K personally, just because you have 1080p HDR TV, and it doesn't have to be 4K to do HDR, which is kind of cool. But my take on the whole 4K thing is it depends on how they use it, how they use that resolution. Are they going to use it for more detail in the world? Like at some point, like Cody's saying, the 4K you're pushing 4 times the amount of these boxes are pushing already. That price board's going to skyrocket
for a little while.
Yeah, it'll come back down at some point, but it's going to skyrocket initially.
You mean for the games?
No, just for the hardware.
Oh, okay.
Just to run it. I mean, the fact that we can run VR on a PlayStation is amazing if you look at just the specs that are inside of a PlayStation compared to like what you need on a computer to run a Vive or a Oculus. But let's take The Witcher. The Witcher is a fantastic looking game. I don't think if I saw it in 4K, if I saw them side by side, I would tell the difference and I would know the difference. But I think if you told me, if I played a game Witcher in 1080p and I was like, this is The Witcher and that's it, I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm missing something. But I'm sure if it was the other way, if you showed me something in 4K and then I went back to 1080p, it's kind of like how when I played with the Vive and I went back to PSVR, I was like, I see what I'm missing here, versus you've not had the experience of playing with the Vive, so you don't see kind of the other side of it. No. So it, like you said, it kind of depends. If you have a 4K TV, I think it's worth it, and I think 4K is coming. I don't think it's here yet. I think right now Sony and Microsoft are setting themselves up. I'm interested to see what Scorpio is and how that handles all this. It
almost feels like they're jumping over 4K, though, because there's already places that are doing 8K TV and 8K content, and you wonder just kind of where it stops.
The problem you have with that is, from a media standpoint, 8K cameras have been around for a few years now.
Right.
You tend to shoot larger than you cut to. So, like an example, a lot of movies will shoot in 4K, or they'll even shoot in 2.5K to cut it down to 1080p, which is about 2000. So they'll do that because they have a little bit of room to play with cropping and adjusting and all that kind of stuff, or even color correction. To me, the 4K will be, like I said, I think the HDR is going to be more important, but the colors, the vibrancy, the details you can put in there. But I don't know, I've never been a graphics guy. Like, think of the games I play right now on there. Like, yes, inside look fantastic, but I could play that 1080p, I could play it 720p. It doesn't matter. Like, I think this affects AAA games more than anything else. Like, by far and away.
There are certain games that come out with each console that I think are designed to showcase the prowess of
Uncharted is the game for PlayStation 4
exactly.
Right
and I think for those games it's going to be a big deal. For other ones, I think, as most gamers feel, you're always looking at like gameplay and like how much enjoyment do I get out of this. Would Fallout be cool in 4K? I'm sure it would be. Yes. But at the same time, it's not going to give you any less of an experience to just play it.
Because one of the debates I heard brought up by, I think it was IGN or something, was, would you rather have 1080p 60 frames per second solid on a console? Which, yes, I know PCs can do that already, but from console standpoint,
I can't tell the difference. Or I got old man eyes.
Oh, I can. Or do you want 4K at 30? Because there's basically the same amount of power to run both. Pretty close to the same amount of power to run both. The 1080p 60 is a little bit less, but not that much if you look at what you need to do both. And it makes a good point. So, like, would you rather have the smoothness, or would you rather have it look pretty? Type thing. So, like, for a fast motion game, I'd rather have the smoothness. Like a Titanfall, I think, from 60 would be better than 4K and 30.
I would lean on the side of smoothness, I think. Smoothness or fidelity?
What's your take on it?
It depends. When I play, I don't have a 4K TV. I have a high definition television from 7 years ago that I don't sit right up against anymore. And truly, I guess for me, I've never noticed. I can see the dip if it drops from 30 to like 10, like if it's a drastic change.
Like where Fallout has those chugging moments where you're just like
And that's like typically there's a lot going on, and with my system and how the PlayStation, some games are built for a more beefy system, but they're kind of just forced on the PlayStation 4 because they're there. Kind of like Skyrim on the PS3. That game should have really come out on the PS4 because that's the only console that could really handle it at that point. You put it on the 360, the 360 of the PS3, not going to work very well.
What was it, Call of Duty, where they like completely changed assets because the 360 and PS3 could not handle the assets they used? It was the first Call of Duty that came out on PS4, and they literally went in and changed assets because it could not handle it.
Yeah, or Destiny when the PS3 version and the PS4 version are both at the same time.
I had no idea Destiny was on PS3.
Yep.
Yeah, they actually had to, once the expansion came out, they stopped
supporting
the PS3 because it put so many restrictions on that game.
Well, that's the same thing with GTA. Like, I'm excited to see Red Dead just because it's the first Rockstar game built on the new generation.
If there's a game that you want to see in 4K, Red Dead would be pretty
It's Rockstar in
4K.
general.
Yeah, but I mean, truthfully though, like I'm not that person. Like, I honestly, like, as long as the game plays, I guess smooth would be preferable.
Yeah.
But then again, like, the game's gonna look beautiful regardless to me. Like, I go back and play Dreamcast games all the time, and it's still beautiful because I can take where they were with the technology and how they made it, and it's always going to be that way. It's like watching like watching old,
like when if I look at Mario 64, like, yes, that's butt ugly now compared to what we have, but it still looks gorgeous. If you take it in that time capsule and you're like, okay, this is what they did versus X Squad. Those next gen graphics were not so good on X Squad.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying, where you got to remember the time and place when things came out. And the only other concern I have with this is kind of like you brought up, are we in the resolution wars? Like, where does this stop? And that's why I was super excited for VR, because it is a new way to play versus make things look prettier. I'd rather have people spend, similar to what you're saying, have people spend time on the game and make the gameplay better than make it look super pretty. Like Uncharted, I think works really well because it's both. If Uncharted just looked super pretty and the gameplay sucked, do you think that game would sell? It would sell initially, but it would just drop off.
The first game had some of those problems where the gameplay was not that solid on it.
I couldn't get through,
but
because of some of the gun mechanics.
It got better. But I think that the immersiveness of a game is a big factor, and if the 4K can contribute to the immersiveness of a game, then that's a good thing. But otherwise, most gamers, like, they play games for the same reason why people watch movies. It's escapism. They want to be able to, like, enter this world for a couple hours and just completely lose themselves, which is why VR is going to be such a big hit. But for 4K, like, that can definitely improve some of that sort of experience, but I don't think it's integral to it.
And I don't want to knock on it. I think 4K is, like I said, I think it's coming. I don't want to say, like, fuck 4K, like nobody needs it, but it's kind of like how I look at VR. It's not necessarily for everybody.
It'll be a slow, gradual process. Everyone eventually will adopt it, but I don't think it's going to take the world by storm. Yeah,
because the other thing is kind of like your TV's 7 years old. I bought a TV 3 years ago, and I'm not going to replace it anytime soon. I got a 50-inch TV in my living room that...
They are getting cheaper 4K TVs, but they're not there.
Yeah, but I spent $1,200 on Panasonic Plasma 3 years ago. I'm not going to replace that until it dies.
I think once 4K... I think once DVDs disappear and they stop...
DVDs are still standard definition.
Right. I mean, once we become standard, high definition 4K,
Blu-ray and streaming services.
Right. Once those become standard at a higher resolution, we're going to see a massive swing towards the 4K revolution, where it comes out to TVs are just now standard 4K, and this is standard, and this is standard. Right now, we're still pumping out these really shitty DVDs and these streaming services that are pumping out just normal normal definition content, standard. And so there's no reason for people to be like, well, I want to watch movies, but I don't want to have to go buy the $50 Blu-ray, then buy the $3,000 TV just to watch it.
Sorry,
go for it.
I was just going to say the other thing you mentioned there was actually very important, which you talked about how the content isn't really there, and that a lot of people, how they consume their media now is differently. So you have a lot of people that focus on things like Netflix and Hulu and that kind of stuff, and even though Netflix has 4K streaming, as we know, the internet in general in America isn't really good enough to handle
and Netflix 4K
streaming.
is not your... I mean, as somebody who's a video guy, like, Netflix 4K is not 4K, it's fucking marketing, and it makes me... The term UHD, Ultra HD, makes me so mad because Ultra HD means it can be... There's, like, 4 different things it can be. And I'm just like...
It's the same as when they do, like, 4G LTE and stuff. There's, like, different... There's, like, 10 different levels of 4G.
But think about 1080p, though. The reason I like... Even HD, I guess you had HD 720p, 1080i, 1080p, but eventually it got to the point where 1080p was HD. Like, that's just the way it is because technology is able to get there. Until I think we have that standard... I think 4K is in a world of hurt. Same thing with HDR right now. There's 2 versions of HDR. PlayStation and Microsoft both support one. I think it's HDR10 is the name of the technology. So what happens to the other one that Dolby, or not Dolby, DLP is making?
The way
like,
of Betamax.
It's the whole HD DVD versus Blu-ray concept type thing. So until we have a standard, I'm scared
Poor
for it.
HD DVDs.
Yeah.
Do you remember them?
They're real expensive now.
I've got one somewhere. So my dad gave it to me. I don't know why he thought I was able to watch it, but I was like, all right.
Yeah,
I'll take it.
Even Blu-rays aren't 4K for the most part because they can't fit enough data.
Yeah,
I mean, it's crazy.
They had a, it's Blu-rays were such a great, marketing. It's like, hey, we can get twice the amount of information with a blue laser, and that was fantastic. And I'm so happy that Sony just like immediately threw that into the PS3 and PS4, and Microsoft definitely lagged a little bit with
the 360.
Right.
They
fell down on the side of HD.
Yeah, they basically voted on the wrong thing back in the day. But the problem I have with Blu-ray currently, and this is kind of getting off topic, but is that it's kind of too little too late because streaming served Netflix. Once Netflix came, like I guarantee that at some point we will have a console that does not have a disk drive in it. Because think about how much room a disk drive takes up inside of a console, and how much heat it generates, and how much noise it generates.
And it's moving parts.
Yeah, we'll eventually get rid of it. I mean, I don't think there's any time. I don't think that's next generation, but we are getting to the point where if the internet's able to get faster.
I hope so in a way, but also that would make me sad to not have physical media for that, because there's a lot of people that rely on physical media and like having a catalog of games, and
I agree.
There's still the same people that I almost think it will remain separate. If you look at things like ebooks and regular books, like regular books are not going away anytime soon, but ebooks are very popular, and a lot of people primarily and purely just get their stuff electronically. So I think it'll end up being more like that than a case of it being disappearing completely. If you look at the consoles that have done that previously, like the PSP Go, didn't work out so well. So it's kind of, and also hard drive space is going to be a commodity, and until you can get those hard drives for cheaper.
It'd be really cool, and I don't know if, it's not confirmed, but Switch uses some sort of card. If you could download the game and flash it to a card, like you could flash it to a thumb drive or something like that, so you still have
you could make your own physical media.
So because one of the
then piracy would be fucking through the roof.
But it'd have to authenticate somehow. If you had an online authentication, like you could do kind of like, let's use the example of like renting a movie from iTunes. At some point, that's going to authenticate and say, hey, your rental's up. We got to ding it. So if you're offline, say you flash a game, you have 30 days offline to play it. You have to go back online and authenticate. After 30 days, if it's not authenticated, that game will not load.
I think that has its own challenges, because that's kind of what Xbox was going to do with the original Xbox One, or at least the original plan for the Xbox.
For it, which is backlash.
Right. And so I think, at that point, if you like, hey, I own this game, and like this goes along with like the older consoles where people want to preserve their games and things like
which
that.
I love. I mean, his shelf's literally behind the camera over there, but I love looking at the shelves and the physical medias.
Right.
So cool.
But once those kind of get to a certain age, you want to then take those, put them somewhere else, and keep the original. With the old Sega discs, PlayStation, those can get scratched or damaged, and then they're not playable. So I have quite a few friends that take those and save them onto the computer, and then take them, put them back on a different disc, so they have these games that can just load and go, and so they're kind of disposable at that point.
This is again kind of a side chat to what's going on. My phone keeps vibrating.
We should get back to the question.
We will. But I got one more thing on this on this topic here. So like one of the things I've understood why video game developers or publishers like why they've never done it is when I buy a version of a game, why can't I get it both physically, digitally, and on all platforms?
That would be cool.
There's money involved. I have a feeling that's the primary reason. But how cool would it be to buy Overwatch? I buy it on PS4. Oh, I have friends on PC. If I have a PC that can run it, why can't I just download that game? I already own the license, but that license for PS4 only. Like, even if it was $5 more to get like an
I like the cross buys that they have going on when you buy it for PS4 and you get it for Vita as well. But I think a physical / digital cross buy would be amazing.
Yes, because I play
much like what they did with movies when you would just type in the iTunes code or whatever and have access.
My big complaint right now with playing with VR is I have a few physical games, which is a dumb idea because you have to take the headset off to change games. Like. That's a big complaint. One of the reasons I don't play VR as much as I do, or don't switch games as much as I do, because I hate taking that damn headset off to switch the game, go set it back up. I know it's easy to do.
At the same time, it's almost like a built-in break.
Yeah, but I don't want that. I don't want to consume as much.
You want to fry your brain.
Yeah, I just want to go.
Sure.
But no, that's
already fried.
Yeah, it's already done. So getting back to Blue's question. So we does 4K, what does it bring to the table? How long do you think it will take to fully implement 4K? If it is coming, and I think we can all agree it is coming. Like it's
5 years.
5 years. Do you think it'll be on the next quote unquote console cycle generation?
Oh, I think the games will be there, like available, but I don't think that 4K is going to be widespread until about 5 years, 3 to 5 years, because those prices are going to start dropping. And right now we're almost like the early stages of Blu-ray, where like only like crazy early technology.
You buy the PS3 to get a Blu-ray player because other Blu-ray players are $1,000.
Right. So I think that I would say 3 to 5 years is a acceptable level before we start seeing it be commonplace.
I think it depends on what the big companies do. Where you have Apple, who has already implemented 5K displays in their computers, and then that kind of spawned Dell, HP, and all these other guys to start putting those kind of so once you kind of get the big companies to start just standardizing these kind of displays, that will then, for content creators and gamers and all these other places, like, cool, let's just make it for that. Let's get it to the point where we're pumping out games that can be played at 4K at their best, but then also are kind of backwards compatible for the people who can't afford it.
So it's kind of like, I hate to use this analogy with gaming, but it's kind of where we're heading, but it's kind of like mobile, like on an iPhone. If you get an iPhone 7 Plus, your screen is a higher resolution than if you have an iPhone 5. And it just, the game auto-adjusts to what's going on. There's times where I load up Tuber Simulator, I can see it adjust itself when I launch the game.
Yep.
Or its slider.
Do you want to know something embarrassing?
Sure.
I was waiting for a response. I didn't know if you did. When I first got my PlayStation 4 in this country, I was using 3. Sorry, in this country, I was using standard definition cables. I had a HDMI cable. I bought one. I didn't realize I had to change the settings. So for 8 months, I had a HDMI cable plugged in that I wasn't using. I was going through standard definition. So it took me 8 months to figure out how to get And as soon as I got it, I was like, whoa!
Yeah, what the hell? So when it came to HD, on my 360, I had the original 360 before HDMI that had the little flip switch thing on it.
That was the worst.
So I had, in my basement, I have a 24-inch, giant ass TV that I used to play everything on when friends would come over. But I'm playing by myself. I had this little 15-inch computer monitor, 1080p, so I'd play Halo on that because it looked better and I could shoot shit better. But when you have friends, you can't look at a screen this big. Yeah. So I played standard definition for a long time until that 360 finally had the Red Ring of Death for the 3rd time and got the S. And then even then, I think we didn't have an HD TV in my basement. I had to take it upstairs to play on HD. God, my 360 life was all standard definition until college. That's what I'm saying.
It's like there's this slow roll of adoption. That's why I think.
But it gives you the option. So it'll be interesting, kind of like you're saying, it'll give you the option of 1080p versus 4K because it would be dumb to be like, this can't play on 1080p because game developers want to put their game on as many things as they can. That makes the most money.
And I'm sure it doesn't take much for them to
scale back.
Yeah, because it's like, hey, we can go up here. What's it going to take for us just to change the resolution, just like on, any computer monitor that you have.
Well, most games are built on computers and then scaled back to consoles, especially when they don't know what the console is. Like the PS4, what are the final specs? A lot of people don't know, and it's Sony giving them an estimate of what they're working on for a launch game, and then here's the final specs. Let's scale back to that.
Or the old school tester kits that they would send out, like the big honking things that they would send out to developers that were nowhere near the actual like specs of the unit, but they could build games that would play on the final unit. And I thought that was like, you had testing ports, you had all these different ones, like most of them had like VGA and like all these other like just peripherals that they'll never touch, or they're like they're hidden away in the actual like original unit they never did anything with. And I think halfway they probably don't do that anymore, but finding those like tucked away and all dusty, it's like, this is what they used to create games on. This is insane. My original TV, the one that I had for 7 years, that was actually my original computer monitor when I got my big gaming computer 7 years ago, or no, more than that. Anyway, it's very old. That was always HDMI, but it was like DVI to HDMI, so it was never true.
So you didn't get audio through it. You would only get.
I had to turn on. I had to turn on my.
I remember composite. Composite could do 1080i, I believe. I don't think it could do full 1080p.
It could try to get up there. It depended on what you were plugging it into. That was
because I know the 360 couldn't do it. It was always 1080i through composite.
And Nintendo, which is your favorite, the GameCube. Actually had the chance for composite, but they were like, nobody wants HD graphics, and completely nixed it. But that thing could have come up to like almost HD graphics, and they could have sold it that much harder, and people would have loved it that much more. But they nixed it, went straight back to
They did correct that mistake with the Wii, though. They did get
the Wii U. The Wii was still standard definition.
The Wii you could buy composite cables for.
Yeah, you could. But nobody did.
I did.
Yeah, you're weird.
I did.
Yeah, you're weird.
I think you're weird,
I'm
sir.
not weird.
2 to 1.
Yeah, the average person didn't.
2 to 1.
Let's just say that. If it didn't come in the box, the average person probably didn't buy it.
True.
So.
All right, what else you got? What's the end of this question?
That was the end of the question. Is how long do you think it'll take to implement it?
Oh, I thought it was a 3-part.
It was. We answered 2 parts in one.
Oh.
We did.
Aren't we efficient?
Because we did. Yeah, we did. Gaming and adding. What does it bring to the table? And we kind of discussed that when we were talking about like the. Frame rates, kind of fidelity of everything, but I don't know. That was a good question for Blue. It's
a great question.
Quite again, I said it last week. James made fun of me because I made fun of him, but I'm always intrigued to see what they come up with, because I don't.
We sit there and sometimes we struggle with an idea for a question.
Yes.
So this is helpful when people make suggestions. So thank you, Blue.
If you want to make a suggestion, go to patreon.com/level2gamersstl, and you can be a Patreon supporter and then have the ability to give us a question.
Yeah, and thanks a lot for Drew for that.
Yes,
bonus level.
Welcome.
That's going to be the sign.
We'll make something. Yeah, we'll make something.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right, what else you got?